Welcome to episode 14 of Tales of the Alleghenies, titled Freedom at a Price, the 250th anniversary of America. The 4th of July, what do you think of when you hear this date? I believe fireworks may be the first thought to enter your mind, as well as picnics and vacation time. I would hope, as true Americans, the realization of the Declaration of Independence would ring as true in your hearts as it did for most American colonists 250 years ago. Today, this treasured document is nearly indiscernible. But as it declares that among our rights will be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The compelling 27 facts of oppression listed in this petition would more than tweak the nose of King George III. The king was more than ever determined to bring his colonial subjects into submission and lead to what today is known as the American Revolutionary War. Long before the ink was dried on the Declaration of Independence, or even conceived, blood ran freely in skirmishes with British soldiers here in America. The settlers of the Allegheny Mountains of southwestern Pennsylvania were hundreds of miles from the main British Army. Somerset County was still part of Bedford County. By this time, small settlements had sprung up in the geographical areas known as the Glades. A large majority were German-speaking farmers, tradesmen, and hunters. Some families sought out these lands to express their religious beliefs, guided by divine empowerment. In the spring of 1775, after the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the Provincial Convention of Philadelphia requested the colonies to provide men, arms, and equipment for the Army. The county commissioners of each Pennsylvania county were to provide their allotment. The Battle of Bunker Hill was fought on June 17, 1775. 10 days later, the First Pennsylvania Rifle Battalion was ready to march towards Boston, Massachusetts. One company from Bedford County was likely composed of a few men from present-day Somerset County. The march was hundreds of miles of rough roads and waterways. Finally joining General George Washington's army, August 8, 1775, at the Siege of Boston. The siege lasted until March of 1776, when the British surrendered Boston to the Continental Army. All the troops, including First Pennsylvania Rifles, were exposed to months of frigid weather, malnourishment, and disease. Military surgeon James Thacker, in his journal, reveals an intriguing description of these Pennsylvania troops. Quoting from his journal, "Several companies of riflemen, amounting, it is said, to more than 1,400 men, having arrived here," meaning Boston, Massachusetts, from Pennsylvania and Maryland, "a distance of 500 to 700 miles. They were remarkably stout and hardy men, many of them exceeding 6 feet in height. They are dressed in white frocks or rifle shirts and round hats. These men are remarkable for their accuracy of their aim, striking a mark with great certainty at 200 yards distance. They are now stationed on our lines, and their shots have frequently proved fatal to British officers and soldiers who expose themselves to view." even at more than double the distance of a common musket." End of quote. Surgeon Thacker certainly gave high praise to these troops of Pennsylvania, of which some came from the Alleghenies. Shortly after the victorious defeat of the British at the Battle of Princeton on January 3rd, 1777, General Israel Putnam wrote in a letter dated February 18, 1777, to the Pennsylvania Council, quote, "50 of the Bedford County riflemen of your state, of which I detached from this place, Princeton, New Jersey, were with Colonel Nielsen, the whole officers and men, both belonging to that county, Bedford, and the militia of the state, behaved with great bravery, such as would honor the veteran soldier." End of quote. Colonel John Piper was engaged by the Executive Council of Pennsylvania to handle all military matters in Bedford County. Most of the able-bodied men that were left in Bedford County were formed into 8 militia companies or classes. There were 3 classes formed in what is now Somerset County. Since a quota of men left the county with rifles, accoutrements, and supplies, little was left to defend life here in the Alleghenies. A letter dated February 9th, 1776 from David Espy, clerk for the Bedford County Commissioners, to the Committee of Safety said, "We have but one gunsmith in the county, who has engaged to make 25 firelocks and has been employed these 3 to 4 months past, but has not got any of them completed. He's been very industrious to procure assistants or journeymen in order to undertake the whole, but cannot obtain any, and we have endeavored to employ others in the adjacent counties, but are informed they are already engaged." As you can see from the letter trying to supply rifles, each made by hand for the war effort, was a slow and demanding job. To buy a personal rifle at that time was probably impossible. Thomas Smith and George Woods of Bedford County complained in a letter dated November 27, 1775 to President Wharton of the Pennsylvania Executive Council, quoting, "Only 1 in 10 men were armed, and most were not trained to fight against Indians." The letter goes on to say, "All the back country is suffering for want of arms." About this place, meaning Bedford County and all the country near it, they were remarkably distressed for want of guns. For when the men were raised for the army, you know we procured every gun that we could for their use. End of quote. The British incited Native American tribes against the frontier settlers in hope it would keep men on the frontier protecting their families rather than joining the ranks of the Continental Army in the Eastern Theater of the war. Smith and Wood's letter goes on to say, "An Indian war is raging around us in its utmost fury. They had killed 1 man at Stony Creek. This is probably near the town of Cantner of Somerset County, Pennsylvania, at the Stony Creek crossing of the Forbes Road. Since that time, they have killed 5 on the mountain," meaning Allegheny Mountain. The letter goes on, citing many more heinous incidents of death and destruction. Smith and Wood states that 1/2 the glades have fled or forded. Forded would refer to blockhouses, one built by Richard Brown northeast of Somerset, and a stockade west of Somerset built by Peter Ankeny. And I'm sure there were more. Some settlers fled further east and some south, clear into Maryland, for protection. The letter continues, "And for all the defense that can be made here, the Indians can do almost what they please. We keep out ranging parties, rangers which are weak and ineffectual, because half the people have fled. Those who remain are employed in putting their families and effects in some place of safety." These letters remind us that not only the deployed soldiers risk death, but also families in our areas were at great risk in the untamed plateau of the Alleghenies. The Forbes Road seemed to be a quarter of incursion by Native Americans sending settlers fleeing for their lives. The road was in a sense a no man's land during periods of the Revolutionary War. The Cox's Creek settlement around present-day Somerset, Pennsylvania, the Stony Creek Glades and settlements further south of the Forbes Road in present-day Somerset County appear to be untouched by Indian attacks. You've heard of the famous ride of Paul Revere and others who rode the countryside of Massachusetts warning of the approaching British? Here in the Alleghenies, we had these trusted first alert riders too. With courage and lacking no hesitation, these riders galloped through narrow, deep wooded roadways, with heart pounding, reining in their horses upon approaching a settler's cabin.
There's a rider coming!
And exclaiming in a clear, loud voice,
Indians! Indians!
Where are they?
The James Well plantation!
Levi, run for your father!
Indians! Indians! One such alert was made in the fall of 1776 near the cabin of James Wells in present-day Jennerstown, Pennsylvania. James Wells was fired upon by a party of Indians while making his escape on horseback. He was struck 4 times and amazingly stayed mounted. He made a grueling and painful ride back to his father-in-law, Richard Brown's blockhouse, about 12 miles away near the present day of Somerset. He was treated with home remedies and survived to fight another day. In summary, the British plan of disrupting and terrorizing the frontier was successful. Financially, it disrupted the collection of taxes from areas of the county that were depopulated by ravages of the Indians. Taxes were sorely needed for the war effort. The Executive Council chided the Bedford County Commissioners for not taking measures to secure their townships for productivity, so revenues could be collected. Easier said than done. By war's end, the Executive Council finally provided the needed militia and supplies to secure Bedford County inhabitants. So as you can see, the world of revolution was far from romantic. American cities and frontiers alike struggled for survival. Death struck and consumed indiscriminately. Our infatuation for this time period can only be had through the spirit of remarkable men and women who championed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Here in the Alleghenies, as across the original 13 colonies, Revolutionary War veterans have helped to conceive a new course for building a great nation.
Boosters in ignition and liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Happy birthday, America. Thank you for watching this episode of Tales of the Alleghenies. Please subscribe and tell us what you think in the comments below. I'd like to thank Old Bedford Village in Bedford, Pennsylvania for allowing us to shoot some of our scenes for this episode. I'd like to thank Historic Hannastown near Greensburg, Pennsylvania for allowing us to film a portion of our episode here today.